They endured the prairies. They crossed the great rivers. But here, the journey stopped being about hope and started being about survival. Could any wagon train low on supplies and late in the season truly survive the 130-mile Sweetwater Gauntlet? This is the line where the Oregon Trail ended for thousands. In this video, we trace every desperate mile of that gauntlet, and our first step on this grueling trek begins where the decisions were most critical, here at Bessemer Bend. This is the precise spot where the immigrants' departure began, the last great crossing of the North Platte River, the river that had both nourished and tested them for over 500 miles. To put today's journey into perspective, we will be covering significant ground along the Sweetwater Corridor. Our current trail segment ends near the historic South Pass, but we will be deviating slightly to the north for the night, camping in Lander, Wyoming. This is Bessemer Bend, marked by the distinctive red buttes. This site holds enormous significance for the pioneers. It was the last major fording site of the North Platte River on the Oregon Trail. After following this life-giving river for hundreds of miles, the pioneers were finally forced to turn southwest, leaving the water behind for the long, dry push toward the Sweetwater River. The fording of the North Platte at this spot was a crucial low-water crossing, especially for companies like the 1856 handcart pioneers who chose to avoid the costly toll bridges downstream. That choice forced them into the frigid river, a sacrifice that ultimately cost many their lives in the weeks that followed. This tragedy reached its devastating climax just up the trail near Devil's Gate, at a place called Martin's Cove, a site we will be visiting shortly. Bessemer has a poignant story of ambition and failure. Founded in 1888, speculators envisioned it as the future Queen City of the West. However, just a year later, Bessemer's bid for the county seat against Casper was thwarted by massive voter fraud, leading to its decline. Today, the only enduring features of the town are its name, borrowed from Sir Henry Bessemer, the British creator of a process that rendered steel from pig iron, and the alfalfa fields. I found it interesting that many pioneer journals revealed a growing frustration with the Platte River. They were eager to leave it behind, perhaps unaware of the daunting challenges that lay ahead without it. This reminds me of how I can perceive the grass is greener on the other side, highlighting the reality of change. Often, the desire for something new overshadows the uncertainties that come with it. It makes me wonder how many of those pioneers' dreams were truly fulfilled upon reaching their destination. Was the great promise of the West ultimately worth what they lost or gave up along the way? The interpretive signs along this trail truly capture the spirit of this place. The first sign here, titled First Among Many, reminds us that river courses shaped this journey as key corridors for early exploration. Notably, this route was confirmed in 1812 by Robert Stuart, an agent for John Jacob Astor's Pacific Fur Company. Stuart benefited from information about area trails shared with him by Native Americans. By meticulously documenting his overland journey back to St. Louis, Stuart provided the first practical account of the trail. His use of South Pass confirmed the most viable passage through the Rockies and demonstrated the route's potential for wheeled travel. Although his account was suppressed for a time, it was a vital precursor that transformed a vague concept into a national aspiration, spurring the migrations that followed. The next sign, titled Marking Their Progress, speaks to the two ways this journey was recorded. Immigrants measured the route by following detailed guides, like William Clayton's Immigrant's Guide, which tracked every quarter mile. But progress wasn't just marked on a page, it was etched onto the landscape. Having traveled hundreds of miles, they left their commitment in indelible marks, carving their names into rock and the deep ruts of their wagons into the prairie, turning the map into a physical reality. Gone are the Aboriginal people who hunted here. Gone are the trappers, and gone are the pioneers who struggled to keep their footing as they forded the cold North Platte. This profound sentiment is captured by the sign titled Witnessing the Past. Yet, despite all the lives that came and went, all shared the memory of this place. But perhaps the most profound lesson is contained in the final sign, titled History is Not Obvious. While man's presence here was fleeting, the great landmarks remain. They are the stoic, enduring witnesses to history, placed here by the Creator long before any trail was carved. They leave no mark but the one that guided the faithful. And our first stop on our retracing of the Immigrants' March is one of those timeless sentinels, Independence Rock. On the road to Independence Rock, I discovered this oasis formed by the North Platte River. In this remote part of Wyoming, where I often found myself the only car on the road for miles, the deep blue water of the Alcova Reservoir contrasts strikingly with the rugged canyons. While a testament to 20th century engineering from the Great Depression era, it embodies the timeless beauty of Wyoming. It reminds me that even in harsh places, water brings life. After the arduous push from the North Platte, Independence Rock appears on the horizon like a geological miracle, an island of granite in a sea of sagebrush. This massive monolith, rising 136 feet, was one of the most recognized and celebrated landmarks on the entire Oregon Trail. The relief the immigrants felt upon reaching this sentinel was not just visual. The rock stands adjacent to the life-giving Sweetwater River Valley. After the arduous crossings of the North Platte, this river marked a crucial shift, a ribbon of water and grass that would now guide the pioneers toward the Continental Divide. And listen closely. Even here, hundreds of miles inland, the high-pitched cry of the California gull is carried on the wind. For the Mormon pioneers who followed this trail further west, that sound became a symbol of salvation. The story goes that during their first growing season in the Salt Lake Valley, a plague of insects began to devour their crops, threatening the Mormons with starvation. Suddenly, flocks of gulls appeared, consuming the destructive insects and saving the settlers' harvest. This event was seen as a divine miracle by the pioneers, which is why the California gull is the state bird of Utah and is commemorated by the Seagull Monument in Salt Lake City. Isn't this place beautiful? Check out that sky. Whether bound for Utah or Oregon, the river valley forms a natural travel corridor, providing the easiest grade and most reliable water. For a wagon train, this meant following the ancient pathways cut first by Native American peoples, then adopted by mountain men, and now made easier by the earth itself. Why Independence Rock? Well, the name comes from the pioneers' understanding that they needed to reach this halfway point by July 4th to ensure they could clear the mountain passes before deadly snows began. It was here that thousands of pioneers left their mark, transforming the rock into the great register of the desert. They used everything from chisels to axle grease, carving their names in a raw, desperate affirmation of their survival. As I walk the path skirting this massive monolith, I can't help but think of the thousands who camped right here. They were certainly thinking of their own mortality. Enough so that they felt compelled to carve their names onto something utterly solid, utterly permanent. They were reaching across time, demanding to be remembered. Although most signatures have weathered and faded, their spirit remains. The legacy of Independence Rock didn't fade with the last wagon. Decades later, a singular voice emerged to ensure that this sentinel was never forgotten. The preservation of this rock, this great register, is itself a testament to enduring faith. Decades after the wagon train stopped, pioneer Ezra Meeker, who first made the journey in 1852, launched his ox team monument expedition. At age 75, he traveled the trail again in a covered wagon, tirelessly raising money and placing markers to ensure the path would not be lost. Ezra Meeker used his personal trail experience to connect the past with the present, ensuring that stories of those who etched their names into this rock would not be forgotten. Today, this fenced area marked by these informative signs stands as a testament to their journeys. Independence Rock is one of those timeless sentinels that simply absorb the human drama unfolding around it. It confirms the pioneers' existence, not through their legible signatures, but through its own sheer, silent permanence. But just 5 miles further west, the story takes a sharper turn. It's here where Devil's Gate stands, a stunning 400-foot chasm sliced by the Sweetwater River through Granite Ridge. To the pioneers, this monumental split in the earth must have felt like the very edge of the known world. As we walk toward it, the darkening sky and those thunderheads rolling swiftly across the plain remind me that the geology was only one threat. The pioneers were totally exposed. Every sudden drop in temperature, every flash of lightning was a terrifying reminder of their complete inherent vulnerability to Mother Nature's power. This vulnerability is etched forever in the history of the Mormon handcart companies, whose trail ran right through this area. You'll recall that tragedy we spoke of near Bessemer Bend? Here, just beyond this ridge, is the site historically referred to as Martin's Cove. Stranded here by an early, brutal snowstorm, many perished from freezing and starvation. The devastating irony is that they were less than 200 miles from the Salt Lake Valley, their final promised land. They made it this far only to be crushed by the calendar and the climate. Fortunately, due to a massive rescue effort launched by Brigham Young from Salt Lake City, many more lives were saved than lost. Devil's Gate stands as a solemn sentinel, a stark reminder of humanity's fragility beneath this unyielding sky. The nearby cove whispers stories of courage and resilience, where sacrifice carved deep lines into the hearts of those who dared to cross. Yet for the pioneers, The deliverance from this desolate ground was seen as nothing less than divine intervention, a blessing from a power stronger than the storm, stronger than the devil, stronger than themselves, and ultimately a belief in something greater than it all. Leaving the gravity of Martin's Cove behind, the pioneers had to keep moving, yet the trail offered one last memorable visual cue: Split Rock. This is one of the most distinctive geological features along the Oregon Trail. For weary immigrants, the clear V-shaped notch wasn't just scenery. It served as a vital navigational tool, directing them toward the Continental Divide. In such a vast expanse, a landmark like this meant staying on course or becoming hopelessly lost. The trail has now led us almost to the finish line of this long push up the Sweetwater Corridor. Imagine a journey that started back at Bessemer Bend over 130 weary miles ago was about a 10-day march for the original immigrants. That brings us to our final stop for this video. Just a few miles west, we find Ice Slough, a unique landmark, once a natural refrigerator on the high desert trail. The peat-like soil and cold usually kept a layer of ice just below the surface, though it would often melt in the peak summer heat. This vital anomaly wasn't just a lifesaver, it was a spot for celebration. Pioneer journals recall that this was a welcome opportunity for rest, and one doctor even wrote of using the natural ice to mix up a batch of mint juleps. A remarkable moment of levity and resourceful resilience on a demanding path. For pioneers, it was a moment of grace, a source of cold, clean water amid the hot, endless trek. Divine providence or nature's generosity? Either way, it reminds me that finding a moment of gratitude is often the silver lining that gives me the strength to keep going. The trail has now led us almost to the finish line of this long push up the Sweetwater Corridor, South Pass. This is the spot that gave John C. Fremont, the Pathfinder, his fame. He mapped the trail in 1842 and assured the nation they could cross the Continental Divide, quote, without a toilsome ascent, end quote. And he was right, because this 20-mile wide saddle is the lowest point in elevation on the Continental Divide in the Central Rockies. The climb was so gentle and the summit so featureless, many immigrants crossed the divide without even realizing it. Talk about an anticlimax. Despite the lack of drama, this anticlimax was more than likely a profound and welcome relief after months of relentless toil. This pass truly was the finish line for the first half of the journey, the ultimate psychological victory. Crossing here meant they were finally over the Continental Divide, and the wagons were officially rolling west into Oregon territory. But my path is taking a deliberate detour. While the Oregon Trail continues west toward the famous Parting of the Ways, I've decided it's time for my own Parting of the Ways, an opportunity to visit one of the most stunning locations in the West. So I'm turning north toward Lander, Wyoming. Our push up the Sweetwater Corridor ends here, but the journey to the Pacific is far from over. Join me next time as we travel the breathtaking Centennial Scenic Byway through the stunning Wind River Range, leading us to the towering peaks of Grand Teton National Park. Thanks for watching, and happy trails!